Hello, everyone. What is going on? And welcome to this live stream here as we get going. I'm going to give everyone a couple minutes just to get settled. If you want to introduce yourself, if you want to say who's here, pop it in the chat. If you have questions, comments, thoughts, you can also put them in the comments for the video. If you're watching on YouTube, we are going to be talking about 9 things that I learned after 9 months away from the insurance industry. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about why I'm back in the insurance industry. I'll touch on that very briefly. And then I really want to get into these topics because there's things that I've been noodling on for quite a while as I've taken, I was probably in the insurance industry for 15 years. From being an agent to working for Trusted Choice and Bold Penguin. So both as a boots on the ground agent and doing a lot of speaking and consulting, and then ultimately being a service provider to the industry for a couple different companies. I was in it, obviously, every single day, just like you guys. And when I stepped away and joined Metabolic for the 9 months that I was there, all of a sudden it was very odd because I was still connected through my wife. I was still connected through everyone in the 5 a.m. club and all my friends and colleagues and that I had made and still kept in contact with, but I wasn't doing insurance every day. And it gave me a different perspective. I also was supremely and 100% focused on solving the problems of a growing fitness enterprise and taking a lot of what I had learned during my time in the insurance industry and seeing if it applied. And just that mix of experiences and situation, I came up with a list of topics that I think are relevant and potentially interesting for you guys. And they're things that I'm going to be talking a lot more about in the future because they're places where I see tremendous opportunity for the insurance industry in general. So if you guys could, before we kick it off, before we get this going, just someone pop in the chat real quick, leave me a note, let me know you can hear me, that everything looks good, sounds good, all that kind of stuff. That would be tremendous. And like I said, as we go, and if you have questions, you can obviously work that as well. So just someone pop in there. Let me know what they see. Let me know what you're hearing. Good. Tim, thanks, brother. Will, nice. All right, excellent. Okay, so it's 12:03. We've done enough of this kind of live stream preamble stuff. Let's get right in. Yeah, rocking my new all choice digs. All right, guys. So let's kind of take it from the top. I put a list of 9 topics out. If you saw the email that came out this morning, if you're on my email list, you saw the 9 topics. I'm going to work through as many of them as I can. I think that, and we may bounce around a little, but I have a whole series of notes that I took in kind of preparation for this and things that I want to make sure I say. Some of them will go through a lot quicker than others, but I'll just kind of blow through the list real quick for you so you can get an idea of what we're actually going to talk about. And then we'll start to get right into the first topic. Again, last time I'll say this, if you have any questions, thoughts, things you want me to kind of dive deeper on, leave them in the chat. I'll be watching that the whole time. There's a slight delay, so if I don't catch it right away, I will, and we'll go back and I'll make sure that I answer those questions or address any thoughts that you have. So the 9 topics, the 9 things that I learned or observations that I made while being away for 9 months are as followed. Number 1, everything is a commodity except for creative. We're going to talk about what exactly that means. But if being away from the insurance industry taught me anything, it's the value of creative and not just the quantity or quality, but the mashup of the two and the real what industrial creative actually means and how that works in a business, and why I think that almost no one is doing it in the insurance space right now. It's a tremendous opportunity. Number 2, we must solve the principal agent dilemma that we continue to deal with every day. This has been an issue for a very long time. And what I'm talking about are the 2 sides of that. The agency owner producer dilemma and the agency carrier dilemma. And we'll talk about those two aspects and how they're slightly different, but ultimately the same problem. And it's a problem we have to solve. Number 3, we need to hire people, not the position. I think that's fairly self-explanatory, but we're going to dive into the details of what I mean there. We rely way too heavily on our safety nets being renewal commissions, carriers, associations, these large enterprise, these systemic pieces of our business, of our industry. I think particularly agencies are leaning way too hard on these safety nets, and it's creating opportunity and gaps in our serviceability and in our product delivery that just continue. I think it was a big part of the rise of the InsurTech movement. What was it, maybe 3 or 4 years ago? And these gaps continue. I just don't see very many organizations that are closing them yet. We're still relying way too heavily on our safety net. Number 5, we allow producers. We need to allow producers to build a body of work. I'm going to dive into that one a little bit. I think there's a big opportunity in that idea. Number 6, we need to focus more on what our clients care about. Again, that one at face value, I think makes a lot of sense, but I have some ideas for how that actually works. We're still not producing, number 7, we're still not producing enough content in general. I mean, I've literally been saying this for more than a decade now. People still look at me like I'm crazy, yet every business that engages in full-time content production starts to excel and separate itself from the marketplace. So I struggle with why we haven't grabbed onto this. I mean, I know the deep-seated reasons why we haven't, but it remains to be a tremendous opportunity, and it has to be on every list. Number 8, insurance is incredibly insulated, and I think that's a major problem. But ultimately, problems yield opportunities. And in this case, those of us who start to expand our vision out past the insurance industry and bring ideas from other spaces back into the insurance industry, I think there's incredible opportunities there. And then the last one, my concern, and this is in particular number 9, is that, and I brought this up a little bit before I had left in some of the conversations that I was having, was that we need to be careful not to chase efficiency at the expense of effectiveness. And what I mean is, if we can over automate our business, we can over implement technology, we can go too far and lose the human touch that makes our business special. And as I've watched, I haven't seen anyone pick up that message. And I just want to reiterate that point. I still feel the same today, that automations are great. Technology is tremendous. It's an important part of every business, but that there is a point where more technology doesn't yield more long-term return. And so we'll talk about that. Okay. So those are our 9. Let's see what we got here. Oh, we got a great crew. Yeah. Go Bills. Love it. 5-1. Awesome. We got an awesome crew here. So I'm just excited, very excited to have all of you here. So let's dive into our very first topic, and that is everything is a commodity except creative. Now, I had been thinking, I think about the idea of commoditization quite a bit. In insurance, it's a word that's thrown around all the time. We're always talking about, are we a commodity? We're not a commodity. Why do people think we're a commodity? How do we not be a commodity? Well, if we are a commodity, how do we then differentiate ourselves? It's an enormous issue. It has a lot of moving parts, a lot of different vantage points, depending on where you are, how long you've been in the industry, what you're trying to achieve. This whole concept of commoditization comes up quite often. That being said, that is not an idea isolated in the insurance industry. When I moved over to the fitness space, it's the exact same thing, right? A workout is a workout is a workout is a workout. So how do you get people excited about your workout versus someone else's workout when really a workout's, yes, they have varying degrees of difficulty. Yes, they have varying degrees of, performance that you can get out of them, right? But ultimately, if you work really hard and you match diet to exercise, you're going to be fit. So it really is just what fits your flavor. Well, if that's the case, then the only defining difference continues to be creative and how good you are at creating a feeling, an experience, an emotional response, something that people want to share and be part of and build a community around. And all of that comes from the creative. It comes from the images, the way you talk about it, the swag that you buy, how you introduce yourself, the way your office looks. This idea of building a community around your business. Yes, in businesses like a fitness studio, it might come slightly more naturally to that type of business where people are collecting on a regular basis. But that doesn't mean that we can't do it in our space. And it certainly doesn't mean that we can't be more creative with the way that we talk about our product and we talk about ourselves. Some of the people that are actually on here live watching this right now do a tremendous job with this. But as a broad sweeping stroke, and I think particularly I'm speaking to any of the carrier professionals who are listening to this either live or in the future, our carrier branding, marketing, creative is just boring for the most part. It's at best kind of all American and at worst completely forgettable. And if all we can really do is occasionally pull out that like all American down home vibe, if that's really the best we can do from a creative standpoint, that means there is enormous opportunity for creative out there. And I'm not just talking about big budget. Like, you don't need an enormous budget to do good creative work that draws people into your brand. And I know some of the mutuals and stuff are trying this. I think we can go even further. Like, why not give our businesses a personality? Why not really allow people to sink their teeth into what we mean or into what we stand for? To me, it is unbelievable that in almost 2020, we still have this, we're still tossing vanilla boxes out into the world and wondering why people don't care. And I just, that hasn't changed. I know it's only been 9 months. It's not like I've been going for that long, but I think we need to be bolder and we need to be more poignant in our communication, more clear. We need to, I'm not talking about, when I say take a stance, I don't mean take a political stance. I mean, like, stand for something, a value structure, share that value structure. And you can share it in funny, interesting, dynamic ways. And then test those messages, test them, see what works. And this stuff is not hard to do today. And it's not as expensive as it used to be if you're going to bring in an outside agency to do that work for you. So I look at the space in general, and I know it's just insurance. It's not beautiful, sweaty people lifting heavy weights, right? That, guys in suits with briefcases isn't exactly the most interesting visual. That's not what it has to be. And it's not exactly what I mean by creative. It just means there's so much that can be done. And the bar for creativity in the insurance industry is so low right now that there's just tremendous opportunity. It still exists. And I think we need to stop worrying about our product, because the products are good for the most part. We've kind of figured that part out. Now it's who can draw more people into those products. And I just don't mean digital. There's a lot more to it than just digital. So I think creativity in general, we can dial in on that and really push forward. Okay. So number two is something that's been a problem in our industry. Not a problem. It's been a point of friction for a very long time. We must solve the principal agent dilemma. So the principal agent dilemma, I'm going to read a couple quotes or definitions for you, just so we're kind of all on the same page. This is the dilemma that exists in circumstances where agents, and don't think of agents as just insurance agents, although the word is the same in this standpoint in terms of it's the same word and we're talking about the same entity, though they mean an individual, not an actual insurance agent. This dilemma exists in circumstances where agents are motivated to act in their own best interest, which is contrary to those of their principals. So there's two principal agent dynamics that we deal with most often in our space, and that is producers and agency owners, and agencies, in particular independent agencies, and the carriers that they represent. So the first one, in the first instance, I want to talk about the producer agency owner dilemma. And I think that because I think that this one should be easier to fix. So I think that there has been a general stance among insurance professionals, particularly those of a more old school nature. Again, that's not a negative depiction. Just the stance tends to be more traditional. That producers should be lucky that they have a job, that they're in a profession which allows them to provide for their family, and they need to just kind of take what they get and be happy and work hard and show up and be quiet. And that to me is one way to play the game. I think what we're starting to see is more people, they're more producer level people, individuals, are not willing to accept that offer. And what happens is producers get very fidgety, might be the right word, and they start seeking out, I'm going to be an expert in this, and I'm going to try this, and they go after digital, and they become very scattered because they feel like they're being shoved into the path that the agency owner took, even if that isn't the same path that they want to take. And I feel like that's where a lot of the friction is created. I think another part of it is handshake deals. I actually was just talking to a good friend the other day about this. A lesson I have learned the hard way multiple times now is that if it's not written in paper, if it's not in black and white ink, how your relationship proceeds, then you do not have an agreement. Handshake deals do not exist. And this someday you'll take this over, or someday you'll be able to buy this agency, or don't worry, I'm always going to take care of you. Those type of statements that I think from agency owners, they feel like they're doing the right thing. Hey, I'm letting them know I'm always going to be here to take it. That is not, I think those days needs to be gone. I think this conversation needs to realign to clear, very discernible, very understandable set of a set path that producers in particular can walk in order to get to a certain place in the agency, written out very early in their career. So as soon as that agency owner determines that this producer could potentially be a long-term participant in this agency, there needs to be a clear path. And if that path is you will never own this agency, then that needs to be spelled out too. Because what happens is you get into an agency and you start to feel like, geez, I'm grinding, and 50%, 70% of the business that I create is being taken from me. And as an agency owner, you're going, well, you should be happy with that. Look at all these services I provide. That doesn't matter. There's a huge disconnect there. And when we understand what that path is, then we can make a clear decision and commit to it. And that I think would help solve a lot of the friction between agency owners and principals, is we just simply get rid of handshake deals. We create clear, concise contracts that outline the path for producers getting to whatever level is possible for them to get to. And if their performance never allows them to achieve that level, well, then that's on them, and that's perfectly fine. But there's so much like, I'll take care of you. Don't worry. You always have a place here. I will tell you from firsthand experience, nobody who is talented and driven wants to hear that. We just don't. We don't want to hear those things. Those things are meaningless, I think. There needs to be a clear path. And I think that getting rid of these handshake deals is a big part of it. So the next part of the principal agent, dilemma is something that is carriers and agencies. And this one is much harder to solve from my perspective. Much, much, much harder to solve. I want to read another definition from, and you can find these definitions. I went to Wikipedia. It's where I found the best one. There are a bunch of them. These just seem to be the most clear. So these are the definitions of the agency or the principal agent dilemma per Wikipedia. But the problem of the, in kind of quotes, the principal agent dilemma, the problem arises where the two parties have different interests and asymmetrical information, the agent having more information, such that the principal cannot directly ensure that the agent is always acting in their, and again, in parens, the principal's best interest, particularly when activities that are useful to the principal are costly to the agent, and where elements of what the agent does are costly for the principal to observe. Does that not define almost like to a T any disagreement that an agency and a carrier has? That the agent has more information at a boots on the ground level than a carrier does, but the carrier controls pricing, controls product, and the agent has to maneuver and manipulate at their level to make sure that their business is taken care of, which is not always in the best interest of the carrier, who is thinking product and pricing and those kind of things at a much more macro level. But so the carrier has more data at a macro level, but the producer and if the producer is also the agency owner or there's multiple, they have much more data at a micro level. And oftentimes this data does not necessarily work together. Sometimes it does. Sometimes you find a great relationship, great product, and it's, everyone's pointing in the same direction. That is not always the case. And often when there's friction, it's because of this conflict of interest that exists where the agent or the agency is operating on micro data in a smaller ecosystem and is trying to obviously operate a profitable business and take care of their staff and of their clients, and a carrier operating at a macro level over a much broader spread geographically and line of business wise. It is very easy to see why those two entities start to diverge in terms of working in each other's interest. And I don't know that I necessarily have a clear answer for this. I think that one answer from an agency level is to be more discerning in the carrier appointments that you have. I don't think anyone needs 30 carrier appointments unless you're, some super regional or national agency, then obviously that's different. If you're in, that's also assuming that you're coming from a broad spectrum of, or a diverse spectrum of clients, and not just working in a niche scenario. But if you're standard, regional independent agency, you don't need 30 carriers. You need a solid MGA and 5 to 7 carriers. I think that will help you better align with the carriers that you do business with, is not having these odd carriers that you just occasionally throw business with. They're distracting at best and a pain in the ass at worst. And then I think being very clear with, I think what Seth, Zaremba, and Neon are doing are one way to fix this principal agent dilemma. We'll see what Sid and Seth and that whole team is able to do. I have faith that if anyone can do it, it's them. And I'm obviously a strong supporter, and will continue to be. But they have to do the work just like anybody else. And I would encourage anyone that's interested in them to reach out and learn more about their organization. But this problem, I think, from the carrier standpoint, that's the harder nut to crack, because one, in general, carriers are much more bureaucratic. You have people who this is a job, they show up. Taking chances is not in their best interest in terms of job security. That inside of particularly mutual companies, in some cases, say Cincinnati or Westfield or a Central or an Acuity, you start to see, you see players in those organizations because they're of a particular size that have weight that are also willing to take a chance. And you see some really good things out of coming in. And those are just 4 examples. Those are not all of them. But I think in general, this is a major, major issue that we have to keep thinking about. That when a carrier comes to you with an issue, understand that their interest is different than yours. And we just have to keep working on that. Like I said, I don't know that I have a clear answer, but I do think that it continues to be a problem and something that we have to continue to work on in general as an industry. All right. So let's keep moving on. A couple of these will be a little quicker. If I've learned anything in business at all over the last 6 years as it pertains to hiring, it's hire people, not positions. I still read a lot of articles about the talent gap and issues with hiring. Guys, we don't need more insurance people in insurance. Insurance people are going to find insurance and find their place. What we need are talented, enthusiastic troublemakers who are willing to come in and question the way things are done so that we can adjust and move forward as the world, as society, as the ecosystems that we operate in change. Danny Kimball was a dance instructor, and now she's one of the most dynamic agency marketers in the entire industry. So, you wouldn't say that a dance instructor would be a great fit as a chief marketing officer for an agency, but it works really well because she's coming at it from a completely different vantage point. And obviously she's talented and enthusiastic and all that. But these are the type of people that we need to find, not more insurance people. Insurance people are great, don't get me wrong, but we have plenty of those. We need more good ones for sure. But I think where the opportunity lies is finding people who do not have any persuasion towards insurance, but are just interested in being part of something and have that enthusiasm and maybe just a little bit of troublemaker in them, because that's where the magic happens. So hire people, not positions. You don't need a producer. You need someone who's really interested in getting to know people and solving problems and is motivated. And then you can teach them to sell and you can teach them insurance. The issue here with this particular idea for hiring is it puts more responsibility on leaders and managers to be mentors. And I get that many leaders and managers don't want to be mentors. And that's where the problem comes from, is that you find someone who's enthusiastic and engaging and talented and a little bit of a troublemaker, and then no one wants to mentor that person. So they become, a nuisance, and then they kind of get jaded and then pushed around or pushed out completely. And that's not what we want to see. We want to see individuals be brought in and assimilated and let them bump into things and help solve problems. Obviously, always done in a respectful way, but hire people, not positions. The industry will always have enough insurance people, and we need them, and that's great. But we need more troublemakers, and I think you find that by hiring people, not positions. So, okay. Moving on. Take a quick look. No one. Danny Kimball, shout out. Always good to shout out Danny. She's killing it. So, okay. Number 4, we rely too heavily on our safety net. And what I mean by that is, and this one is geared towards agencies, agents, producers, that kind of thing. We rely too heavily on carriers. We rely too heavily on associations, and we rely too heavily on our renewals. And we ask for permission way, way, way too much. Go solve problems, right? Like, no one has the answers. No one has this thing completely figured out. The way that your dad or your uncle or your mom or your aunt built the agency that you worked for 30 years ago, you cannot build that agency that way today. You can't. Before I took the job at Metabolic, I spent 6 months researching how to start my own agency and ultimately decided that I would rather have a donkey kick me in the nuts than do that, because it is not an easy process. Like this in the idea of just throwing up your shingle and going out and starting to sell policies, like that does not happen today. It doesn't work. And carriers are not going to support you at those levels. And it's going to be very, very difficult. There are people who have done it. God bless them. But I'm telling you, they are more the exceptions to the rule. And my point in saying to you is that we have to start solving the problems that exist in our industry without waiting for carriers to push down information to us, without waiting for our associations to push down info. Start figuring out the problems for yourselves, because what an association puts down is obviously their best guess at what could help you, but it doesn't mean it's actually what's best for your agency. It doesn't mean you shouldn't consider what they share with you, or a carrier shares with you, or someone like me or someone else who likes to just spread ideas in the industry. Like, it doesn't mean you shouldn't try it. You should, or at least give it a look. But waiting is not the answer, because things are the world, the business in general is just moving so fast these days. We have to figure out the solutions that work for us. It's why there isn't an all-in-one kind of utility knife solution for anything, for agency management, for agency marketing, for client engagement, for sales. It's because every situation is different. Every agency is set up different. And, every agency has its own personality, its own dynamics. And it's almost like we have to pick from the buffet of options that work for us and create our own solution. So I implore you to not wait, to not rely on some larger entity to figure out a solution and pass it down for you, or to give you permission to do something. Just go out and do it and figure it out. I think there's tremendous opportunity in that. And I think there's a lot of agencies that are doing it, and we know about them. I want to know about more. I think there are more agencies out there capable of figuring things out themselves. And I want to start to hear those stories. So cool. If you guys know anybody who's doing tremendous stuff, love to hear about it. Leave it in the comments, leave it in the chat, shout them out. That's what this is all about. All right, we are on number 5, so technically past halfway, and we're about a half hour into the show. So I guess I'm doing all right from a time management standpoint. How's everyone doing out there? I appreciate all the comments. Let's see who we got. I already mentioned Tim Heil. We got let's see, Brett's here. Jeff from Forge 3. Narcisco from Effective Coverage is here. Bellman, awesome. Alex DePazzo. I see B Atomic. I'm assuming that's Sid, because I don't know that Seth knows how to use the internet. So awesome. I appreciate everyone for being here. All right, number 5. Let's keep going. Let's keep pushing. Number 5, allow producers to build a body of work. This is an idea that I've thought a lot about for a long time. And I'm going to be completely honest in delivering this to you. I don't have it worked out 100% in my head, but it's an idea that I want to start to share with you, and that I think over the coming months or years, or however long it takes, I'm going to continue to flesh this out, because I think it's very important. This is an EQ issue, emotional intelligence issue. This is a tough one, because ego plays such an enormous role in running a business, in every business. And it's particularly true when you're the one that founded the business and grew the business, and your name is on the door. And as much as I don't mean you're egotistical, I just mean that it is tough to share when you have been the guy, the woman for, X number of years. It's a difficult thing to do. So kind of similar to what I talked about before, when we were talking about the principal agent problem between producers and agency owners, this idea of allowing producers to build a body of work. And what I mean by that is, I think for a very long time, we've said, you have to operate under the umbrella of our brand producer. You're going to be faceless producer number 1 of, the XYZ agency. And I'll give you a great example of someone who I think is doing this well is All Choice Insurance, Jack Wingate, picking up somebody like Jared Bellman and allowing him to be very much himself in conjunction with the All Choice Insurance brand who I'm rocking right here. Right? Like, that's a great example of allowing Jack allowing Jared to kind of build his own body of work, allowing him to be his own man, his own person out in the world, and be part of the brand, right? We're partners in the brand. Partners doesn't necessarily mean ownership. It means allowing that producer to really fly the flags that make them who they are, and spread their wings and have a personal brand which could match, or even in some cases overshadow the agency brand in the ecosystems that individual producer operates in. So I'm going to just back up on that a little bit. Like, I think the days of unquestioned employee loyalty are over. And I think that that's a good thing. I actually think that it is good for everyone that employees don't get a job, feel so thankful that you, the benevolent business owner, was willing to provide them with employment, that they are unquestionably loyal for the remainder of their career until they retire or they're put in the ground. I think that's a good thing for everyone, that is no longer the case. And that individuals, particularly those, say, 45 and under, are very willing to move to another opportunity if their current opportunity doesn't work for them. I think that is ultimately a good thing, because it allows the chips to continually shuffle and optimize. Allows the employment ecosystem to optimize. And who I see being the bellwether winners in this game are those that allow their staff. Now, I use producers a lot just because they oftentimes they're very client facing, but entire staff to build their body of work. If someone is very invested, let's take a CSR, for example, someone in the service department. Let's say they love your agency, but their passion is the humane society. They just love animals and they want to make sure animals are taken care of and they're not abused and all that kind of amazing stuff. Well, allow that it's okay if that individual is better known for being a member of the Humane Society than a member of your agency. That's a perfectly fine thing. And I think in that instance, oftentimes we're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But then when it comes to, say, a producer who maybe gets super involved with a chamber, or maybe with an association, or with some other organization, we want to rein them back in because we're worried they're going to give away client information or trade secrets, or be recruited away from our agency, or we just don't want anyone to think that that's the person that runs this business when really it's me. And that to me is a major malfunction in today's business environment, and where I see opportunity. And this is, again, you can probably tell that I'm kind of working this out in my head as I talk through with you. I think that allowing your people to be themselves, and in the ecosystems that they live in, be the rock stars, with your agency brand being secondary to them in their ecosystems, in the ecosystem that they love, whether it's, Little League Little League softball, or Humane Society, or some chamber of commerce, or national association, whatever it is. Let them be those rock stars in that ecosystem. Let your brand be secondary, because that gives them some ownership in their own life. And they don't feel like they're constantly under your thumb, whether you are a dictator or not. And I also think that type of relationship and giving them that freedom, why would they ever leave? Because most people aren't going to have the security to do that. And if they did leave, what's the big deal, really? I mean, I just, that would mean that they weren't really bought in to begin with. And so that's the idea, this idea of a body of work. I'm really interested in what people think about it. And Landon actually makes a great point here in the chat for the video. He said, I think it's time that we put the term producer in the ground. I agree with you to a certain extent. I would just be super interested in like what your alternative is. It's a really embedded piece of vernacular in our industry. I would never refer to myself as a producer to someone who isn't in the insurance industry if I was one, because that doesn't make any sense to them. But I think inside our industry, referring to someone as a producer, it does qualify, and it is very clearly understood your role. So I don't necessarily have a problem with it when you're speaking inside the industry. I wouldn't use it on outward facing materials that went to any type of clients or organizations or prospects or anything like that. To me, they you know, it means nothing. What do you make movies? Like it doesn't mean anything. So yeah, I don't particularly have a problem with it, but sales agent, yeah, that's fine. Producer actually sounds cooler than sales agent to me, but that's just me. I think that's a problem I don't really care to solve, so I'll let you guys figure that one out. All right. So let's keep moving on. Spend some time on that one. Definitely we'll spend more time on it. Interested in your guys' thoughts, feedback. Let me know, hit the comments, whatever. You can hit me up later, emails, ryan@ryanhanley.com if you ever want to email me. We'll keep rolling on here. So number 6, focus more on what our clients care about. I'm going to tell you just I'm going to give you a case study basically from Metabolic. So when I first got there, our revenue per client was, we'll say X amount. I don't want to give any proprietary information away about the business, but let's say it's X amount. That was what our revenue per client was. And what we started to do while I was there through a couple different programs was spending a lot of time listening, watching, and actually surveying our clients and getting their feedback about both our product, our main product, which is obviously memberships, but also the apparel that we created, the macronutrient coaching program that we did, all the different products that we had branded, our branded products, as well as our supplement line. We spent a lot of time watching, listening, and actually surveying them. So what I mean by watching and listening was I would actually sit sometimes in the morning in the foyer where clients would come in, members would come in, and they'd register for class or sign themselves in or look at the different stuff that we had spread out. I would actually just watch them and listen to the way they interacted with our trainers and with the merchandise that we had. And what happens is when you actually slow down and listen, you get a feel for what people actually want, and you get a feel for where there may be gaps in what you're providing. And I think Net Promoter Score is a great way to track this on an automated basis, but you're just not going to get everything you need out of Net Promoter Score. And I think my advice for the insurance industry and taking this back is going out to our clients and actually sitting down with them and talking to them. Like not just here's your policies, have a nice day, but like scheduling a time with them, whether you're buying them lunch or you're buying them coffee or whatever, dinner, make it obviously worth their while to give you feedback, but spend time with them and ask them and provide them with a forum that allows them to be very open and honest and real. And if you can do it in a way where they don't actually, they feel very comfortable, what you get out of that is tremendous. So over the period of the 9 months that I was there, we were able to increase the revenue per member from X to X plus 7. So $7, we increased the revenue per client, $7 per client over that time period, which was a nice, substantial, significant increase in revenue per client. And what it also shows is when they're not just buying a membership, and what we didn't do, important to note, we didn't increase the cost of membership. So this was people buying additional services, buying merchandise. And that to me shows we were providing them with supporting products, supporting materials, supporting programs that only enhanced their experience working with that business. Now, from straightforward, this could be, making sure we're adding umbrellas, cross-selling life insurance, things like that. I think, people have talked about that for a long time, but maybe there are other programs that people would be interested in, or other ideas that people are interested, or things that people just don't simply understand. And if we can spend time with those clients and learn more about where there's gaps in their knowledge, their understanding, or gaps that they actually see in the service that you're providing, we can solve those problems instead of just shoving things at them and hoping it's what they want. We can actually create the things or provide the things that they're asking for. And that to me is a ubiquitous idea. I think it's universal. It's in every industry, but in particular, it's something that I think we can continue to focus on in our space. So, all right, let's keep rolling. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this. This is a lot of fun for me. I like these kind of brain dump things. It helps me think through my ideas on different topics. 9 is a lot. I'm starting to get tired, but we got about 15 minutes left. We got 3 more topics to go. So let's keep crushing. I appreciate you guys for being here. We have just looking at the stats here, we have over 30 people watching live. That's pretty sick. Really appreciate you guys. All right. Let's see here. Number 7, we're still not producing enough content. We're still not producing enough content. Like just in general, we're not producing enough content. If you are growth focused, you have to produce more content. Now, I did have a conversation this morning with a fairly old school agent who was like, Hanley, you're crazy. Don't come back to the industry and start preaching, all this BS about marketing and leads and advertising and none of that works. And, $1 million account is never going to buy from you online. And not that I'm going to say that that's impossible, but it's probably unlikely. I would agree with that. If your goal is $1 million accounts, then digital content in its purest form is probably not a space that you need to spend the majority of your time, but you do need to have a nice digital footprint to make that happen. But when I say create more content, I'm not just talking about blog posts or social media posts. I'm talking about taking in all the spaces that someone could find your business and spending time in that space. So I'll give you just a little example. I was doing an audit of the Murray Group's Google My Business page. And I noticed that the photos hadn't been updated in a long time, actually since the day that I left. So what I did was I went in and I found a bunch of photos and I started adding those photos and just making sure that the cover image was updated and that the Google My Business page information matched what the Murray Group is currently doing in their hours, and added some map data and all kinds of stuff. And that was probably last week sometime. And already just a week later, I'm going in and I'm seeing that the photos are being looked at and clicked through as people find the business and then search to see who the people are. And you can get all that from the Google My Business analytics. And that's just one small little microcosm. Are you consistently updating the photos in your Google My Business account? You most likely are not. Maybe the people who are live on this video are, because most of you I just know are more active than others. But if you're not, that's one place that you need content, because anybody, a CEO of any company, a purchasing agent, a procurement agent, whoever's handling the insurance, chief risk officer, if you're dealing with businesses that big that would have that person, these individuals are going to check you out. Now, they're also going to take into account, who else in the space is using you, what type of reputation do you have? You've probably quoted them before. They're going to take all that into account, but they're also going to make sure that your website looks legit. They're going to go give it that smell test, and they're going to go, they're going to take a quick look at your Facebook page maybe. And in general, this activity in the content space is so easy today. It's so easy, and we're just not doing it. And for the carriers out there, I'm going to go back all the way to number 1 with the creative piece. You guys should be crushing it. Carriers should be absolutely crushing this game. There is no reason that every carrier out there doesn't have someone who is just crushing content. This is not a major investment. This is actually a relatively small investment, and you can be starting to connect with your brand with customers. Now, most of the independent agency carriers don't write direct. And that's why they don't make that investment, because there is this assumption that somehow all of the marketing and sales responsibility still exists on the agent. I just think that's a very myopic way of viewing the relationship and just your future in general. And if I were part of a carrier, or if I were advising a carrier, my recommendation would be, let's get out in front of our agency force and put our brand into consumers' hands, so that then when they sit down with one of our agents, they know our brand. Maybe they're even asking for our brand. But when one of our agents pushes our paper across the desk in a proposal and our logo is recommended, that insurance consumer is not questioning for a heartbeat that agent's recommendation. And we're just not creating enough content. It continues. I'm going to bang this drum probably until forever, until I'm either in the ground or retired, because it just doesn't seem like we're taking to it. I mean, in the fitness game, my friends, you have to produce content like a maniac. Like a maniac. You are competing against these fitfluencers who are producing 15 posts a day that are beautiful and scripted and perfectly positioned, and you have to produce an insane amount of content in the fitness industry, right? And you look at insurance, and it's like, if anyone was doing 1/10 of what we were doing at Metabolic, they would be dominating the game. Dominating. I mean, just the work that I did when I was with the Murray Group all those years ago, we still sit on the top of Google searches. We still come up. We're still getting thousands of hits a month on our Google My Business page for different things that I did there, and all the reviews we got and the review program we put up. I mean, it's there for the taking. You can believe that it doesn't work, or you can question it, but it absolutely works every time for every business. This is not something that you question. If you don't believe in it, that's fine. Or if you don't want to do it, also completely fine. But don't tell me that it doesn't work. It does. And we are in very, 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 very few of us are creating enough content to actually make a difference. So create more content. All right. I got 8 minutes for 2. I think we can do this. Insurance is very insulated. And what I mean by that is, like, if you don't currently operate in the insurance space, if you don't sell insurance, if you haven't worked for a carrier, whatever, literally in general, our industry just doesn't even listen to that person. Now, every once in a while, you'll get a Marcus Sheridan or someone who will come in and hit a bunch of gigs and work through the industry. And that's great. But we're not reaching out into other spaces enough and drawing in the ideas and the things that they're already doing, right? Like today, I have 15 more tools in my tool belt that I can implement into an insurance agency or into an insurance carrier, because I spent that time in the fitness industry, because I learned all these things that you had to do to be successful in the fitness industry that no one's doing in the insurance space, that I can now draw into insurance, and just take that brand or that agency and push them light years ahead, because I've taken experience from another industry. And you don't have to work in another space to do that. There are thought leaders in every industry sharing insights, tips, best practices from these other spaces, and we can draw them in. Now, I think some of that happens with real estate and mortgages because we work so closely with those people. So there is a little simulation there. Zach and Matta from GNN have done a lot of good work, kind of pulling in some tactics from other industries, and that's great. But in general, we have to not be so insulated. Just because someone hasn't sold an insurance policy doesn't mean that their expertise and their guidance can't help us do our jobs better. Like, we just have to get past that idea. It's like when I was sitting in a brainstorming meeting at Metabolic, we were literally talking about things that we had seen in any space, YouTube videos, social media posts. And we're like, oh, can we do this here? And how do we push it? There was no barrier. And I think too often we're playing follow the leader in our space and just looking at what other insurance people are doing and listening to other insurance people. And not that that's bad. That just needs to be one part of what we do. And then some part of our brain, even if 80% of our attention is on other insurance professionals, if we could take 10, 15, 20% of our brain or our attention and just let it leak out into some other spaces and pull in the tidbits that we think could work in ours, I think there's opportunity there. I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity there. And I'm going to try to do more of that moving forward, pulling in ideas and, best practice, whatever, from other spaces that I think could help insurance professionals move forward, carriers, agents, et cetera. All right. 5 minutes left. You guys have been tremendous. We have pushed almost to 40 live viewers at a given time. And we're still rocking plus 30, which is just, I just thank you so much for being here. This is a lot of fun for me. I hope you guys are getting a lot out of it. The replay is going to be on YouTube, so you can come back and watch it over again. I'll probably push it out as a podcast in a couple of days too, so you can listen to it if you listen to the podcast. If you're not subscribed to this channel, I just want to say that if you're not subscribed to my channel, please do. I have tons more video content coming out. I have a lot of stuff planned. I'm working on it, and we're going to be pumping out some weird. I'm going to be pumping out. I don't know why I always want to say weird. Makes it sound bigger right now. It's just me sitting at my kitchen table. I'm going to be pumping out a lot more video content. I did a survey of my email subscribers, and almost unanimously, they want to see more video content. People like video. There are the people who don't like videos. They can't watch it at work, et cetera. I get that. I'm going to keep writing articles, but there was an overwhelming push for more video. So we're going to do that. So it'll be fun. Okay. Last one, number nine, our last thing that I learned in the last 9 months away from the insurance industry is that, we do not want to chase efficiency over effectiveness. And, I think when InsurTech has brought about, I think rightly so, and I think it's a positive that we need to be focused more on automation and technology and streamlining processes. And like I said, this is a victory. InsurTech, I think, has been a victory for our industry as a whole, for independent agents, for independent carriers, for everyone. And the InsurTech movement has been a net positive. What I caution all of you at home of is to sacrifice the human connection that makes independent agencies and carriers special, to sacrifice that at the altar of automation and efficiency. Automation and efficiency, those are short-term wins, because yes, they move people through process faster. Yes, they allow us to track conversions and things like that more easily. But they don't create the long-term connections and bonds that are necessary for longevity. And I think, kind of taking a quote from Seth Godin and Gary Vaynerchuk, we need to do things that don't scale, or continue to do things that don't scale. I used to sell a lot of personal lines policies, packages at people's kitchen table. Like, I would literally drive at night to people's homes. Now, no one at the Murray Group does that anymore. A lot of that is because, people don't want you in their home as much. So that's not necessarily the best example. But the idea is creating those touch points where you didn't have to do that, but you did. And it shows me, the consumer, the client, that you care. And now I'm starting to care about you. We don't want to lose that mentality in automation, because I think that if we do, that is sacrificing the longevity of our businesses and of our industry in exchange for, quicker turnaround or whatever. Technology is important. Automation is important. Being efficient is important. Too much leakage and you can't run a profitable business. Roger that. Like, I get it. I just think this is where art meets science, and it takes thoughtful, intentional leadership up and down an organization in order to execute this. And if you can do it, that to me, it's where I was headed with metabolic before that got derailed. Whatever the next iteration of my career is, I want to continue to speak and create and help agents. I have other ambitions as well. I'm going to be doing some consulting work at some point. Maybe some fractional CMO work, helping agencies, helping carriers define their strategy, put many of these things into practice. That's where I hope to go. And a big part of that, I would like to implement into our industry. A big part of that work is helping organizations marry the art with the science of growing their business, of knowing how to automate, how to create efficiencies while still maintaining and building brand and trust and respect and relationship. And if you can do that with a little bit of empathy, I think that's how everyone wins. So guys, those are my 9 things that I learned throughout the last 9 months away from the insurance industry. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments right now. I think it's been a lot of fun for me. I mean, I just spoke nonstop for an hour, so my voice is starting to hurt. But I hope you guys got some value out of this. I'm going to go through the comments later. Maybe I'll do a recap video and just talk through some of those, see what everyone was saying. I think that your being here definitely provided me with a lot of energy to push through this. So I appreciate you. I'll say one more time, thank you for being here. Many of you I know very well who are here live. I see you commenting. Just want to say thank you for being willing to accept me back into the industry in whatever shape that takes so easily after being gone for 9 months. That's meant a lot to me. And I just promise that I will continue to add value as much as I possibly can to our space and to your businesses. And if you ever have a question for me, you can hit me up, Ryan@RyanHanley.com. I spend a lot of time on Twitter. That's RyanHanley_COM, or just search Ryan Hanley on Twitter. That tends to be where I'm spending a lot of my time. And otherwise, please subscribe. Please like, share, tell your friends about the show, because I want more people to know what you know. I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you. I'm out of here.